Welcome to B Shifter. Today, Nick Brunacini, Josh Blum, John Vance here. Glad to have you along for the ride. Our topic today is the senior advisor. So we'll get into that here in just a second. How are you guys doing today?
Fantastic.
All right, good.
Happy to be here.
I'm awake and alive.
Well, that's good too.
I'm exuberant with it.
I'm alive with testosterone and other supplements that I take all day long. We just started doing this functional medicine thing in my house, so I actually haven't started the functional part of it yet, but I look forward to that. It's part of being retired, you know. You got to take better care of yourself.
So they say.
So they say. So today the topic is senior advisor, and in the blue card system we have, of course, our incident commander, who's going to be primary, our IC number 2, who's in a command post. They are supported with a support officer, and then as the incident continues to grow, we bring in what we call a senior advisor. And I think it would be really good, especially for those people who, you know, even blue card users, we talk about what a senior advisor does, but I think talking about some of the attributes and some of the ways that a senior advisor can enhance a scene and help us overall manage a better scene would be helpful for, again, folks who are blue card users, but also thinking about blue card or, just not quite sure how the senior advisor thing works. So I know I've been a senior advisor on several incidents. Nick has been. You have been, Josh. So let's talk about what the senior advisor does.
So I think to kind of kick it off, that, blue card certifies, IC1, IC2, and then we have really the objectives and checkoffs for, the division boss, and then we have a checkoff piece that we provide. It's not a certification checkoff piece that we provide for, the senior advisor. So you could actually run a scenario and, walk through that. What does that really look like, and exercise it before you do it? Because it's one of those things where, and most systems, it probably doesn't get exercised very often, either because of just not having the resource to do it, or just not having the incidents where you really need that position. And I think this is going to be another one of those topics, like many that we have, that there's kind of what it looks like in the metro big city, and then it's kind of what it looks like in suburbia, and like who fills that role and when would they get there, and all those things. The job's the same, but it's like, how do you really do that, and what's it look like? And the position doesn't mean you have to have a vehicle that they ride around in or a command van that shows up. It can still be, you can complete the objective of the position, I think without that. And, when I think about the senior advisor position, I think a lot about really command functions 6, 7, and 8. That, command function 1, 2, 3, 4 is kind of like initial, the strategic IC. They're using them all together. We communicate through command function 5. We use 6, 7, and 8 in other places, but really the senior advisor's I think it's like almost like a checks and balances, and then it becomes a big reinforcement and support piece as the incident grows.
We support an IC instead of coming in, and I think the old model in a lot of the United States was they kept passing command until the most senior person got on the scene. We don't do that with Blue Card. That's not part of Fire Command. What we do put in place is a system to support the IC, to help the IC manage the incident, and that's what the senior advisor does. And the other thing it does is allow them to focus on the incident while the senior advisor takes so many things off that IC's plate that the IC would have to worry about. So, for instance, you have an incident where there's an environmental concern and the Environmental Protection Agency shows up, or someone from the Governor's Office of Emergency Services show up. That senior advisor, or the mayor even, that senior advisor can tell the IC, don't worry about that, I've got this. You continue running the incident. So let's talk about who's ideal to help that person out and the kind of skill set that person needs to have.
When you look at deployment, we send a number of units based on what the reported incident is, right? So when you look at like the incident management world is the incident grows in scope and you need more, say, fire control, as you call engines and ladders, and they supply you fire control, task level fire control. Well, as you increase the amount of that you need, there's a corresponding increase of strategic level management you're going to need to manage all those new task level resources. And Josh mentioned division bosses. That's probably the first delineation and subunit that we use. Is the first the first organizational unit made at every incident scene is that of the incident commander. Right? So when you draw out an incident org, Engine 1 can get there and they're going to do X, Y, and Z on the task level. But from an incident organization standpoint, that incident commander is going to establish command and operate as the mobile IC in the thing. And like you said, Vance, in the very beginning of that, let's use an incident where you're going to need a senior advisor sooner than later, something big. Well, if you're Engine 1 and you're pulling up and you think, oh my God, I'm going to need at least a 4 to 5 person strategic level contingent to manage the tactical and task level requirements of this incident, that's a sign for that IC that they really should be doing a resource determination right now. Because if this is bigger, you need to make sure I got enough task level units coming. Because in about 3 to 5 minutes, in an urban setting, you're going to probably transfer command from mobile IC to strategic position IC. So now we've upgraded command, we've put it in the buggy, inside the command post. If you're outside the command post, you're IC number 1. It doesn't matter if you're a chief wearing no turnouts, if you're outside the command post, that's what you are. Inside the command post, we can start to support that person with a support officer. So the decision that IC number 2 needs to make is, do I need a support officer now or do I need a division boss somewhere? Because you're going to use your next arriving tactical level officer for that. When the senior advisor comes in an urban setting, the senior advisor is typically the ranking on-duty officer. So, and the system that I grew up and graduated from is you had company officers were captains, you had battalion chiefs, and then shift commanders were deputy chiefs. That's the position I retired in when I left. So I had been a shift commander for, 6-7 years, something like that. But really, you were the one that supervises the battalion chiefs at that point. So you're there to support them. And like you said, Vance, this isn't a deal where we transfer command one time from mobile to inside the command post. Once that IC has it, it's my experience that if you train that person, let's say in a program like Blue Card, because that's what we did. When we trained everybody in Blue Card, all the battalion chiefs were competent to be inside the vehicle ICs, all of them. So it wasn't this deal that, if Jimmy gets here first, make sure you're right on top because we're going to have to take command because Jimmy is going to screw it up. No. You need to train Jimmy to operate in that position. And my experience is all the Jimmies that we trained got it, is they were all good then. So when the bell rings and now you're running the incident, Jimmy stays there as IC number 2 inside the van, and as the senior advisor, you come in and you kind of figure out Jimmy's responsible for fire control and hazard mitigation, hazard control, loss stop. That's what I want you to focus on. Outside of that operational piece of that, all the function that comes in to support it, it's easier if the senior advisor is the person that starts to deal with that. What that gets you, I'll just skip to the end. We do incidents. Set up the command van, do the thing. When it's over, we de-escalate. We do a little review in the command van about how the command post operation went. We have never had to transfer command away from the IC, ever. And then what you hear from them all the time is, that was great. We were here about 45 minutes, and we used about a whole 2 alarms, maybe 2.5. You're like, we've been here for 5 hours. We've gone through 4 alarms, and the mayor was here for a little while, and then Taylor and Travis showed up because they wanted a picture, and then and they're shocked. They're like, you're kidding me. And you think, no, but the system worked. Is you guys were in the tunnel of fire control and hazard mitigation. You knew where all your divisions were and what they were doing, and you were working to get fire control, your all clears, and your loss stopped. the system and organization behind that, the senior advisor puts in. Now I make sure my rehab set up. I make sure I got my PIO over here. I make sure that I got my reps to deal with the utilities and this and that. Big incident. This side of the block is burning. I need all the electricity shut off from 2nd Street to 3rd Street, from Buchanan to Van Buren, right? Power company rep comes, all killed, chief. We got her. You look over and you say, why are the lights on in that building and that building? Oops. The IC shouldn't have to worry about that. The IC's worried about getting water to attack positions. They're talking to divisions. You got enough resources, all of that. This other stuff behind is you build that strategic level organization that you need to run something where you got 2, 3, 4 alarms. There's a lot of back-end work to fill there. That is the role of the senior advisor in my mind, period. And then you supervise the critique when it's done. I mean, so you just kind of keep general social order is what it is. And that senior advisor person in my system became responsible, basically was the training chief too. Is we had an assistant chief in charge of training, but the shift commanders that worked out of our command training center managed Volume 2 in a way that the training division didn't. We were getting to the point where operations was doing all of its own operations training. And so that was just built into how the new fire department was operating at the time. And it was a shift-based system is what we were going to. Which is a difficult thing to pull off because most chiefs operate in an administrative 40-hour week role. So we were trying to redo the fire department. No, the chiefs, the response chiefs work the same schedule as the workforce. We're part of the workforce. This is what this looks like. So it really kind of made the strategic contingent more occupational in the thing. We didn't work. Example. Everybody's coming to command training because we're answering questions. You know, Garrison talks about accountability. Well, no, accountability is, this is mine, I'm going to fix it, and this is what this looks like. In the middle of that, because it was having a modicum of success with training the general masses, is other people wanted to get in. So the administrative chief wants to do the next session, the first 30 minutes they request. What do you want it for? Well, we're making some changes to the grooming policy. You think, well, how's that affect fire control or haircuts? Well, it doesn't. Well, okay, thank you very much, goodbye. But then the ops chief calls back. Hey, you know, he called you about it. So you want us to turn this into just training for everybody? No, I don't. Okay, good. Then I'll tell him that you can hang up on him next. We don't do that here. We do Army training, sir. That's what we're soldiers. We're not going to do floral arrangements next week, just to use an example. So that's kind of where the senior advisor came. And in fact, you kind of serve as a leadership role in operations. I mean, in fact, before I retired, I viewed myself as a union president of B shift. Well, C shift before I left, but that's kind of the role I think I had as a chief then. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It worked out pretty well.
Taking care of the good and welfare.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a unit. The weight of their hearts is through their stomachs in other ways, but I understood that because I was one of them. So we spoke the same language. You could make deals with people that really were deals. You kept them. You kept your word. You did what you said you were going to do. It was a fun time to be alive during that era. Uh-huh.
I think for a system like, and I think a large urban system like Phoenix, that is the way you need to organize it, and you have to organize it. In systems similar to mine, where I came from, I had a coffee with the battalion chief every day. Mm-hmm. I talked to the ops chief every day, and then when shit broke loose, we were right behind him to support him. Again, not coming in but we knew the plan. The normal everyday stuff was going on. We went to their trainings and everything else, but yet when they needed the support, we also had the staff that was going to be able and had the relationships and everything else. And they knew we weren't there to because they had the competency level. All of our battalion chiefs are blue card instructors, so they knew exactly what they were going to do.
When you train together, that's what it builds. Yeah. It's almost like a marriage. As you say, okay, we're partners in this thing. I'll get back to the accountability piece. Everybody screams for accountability. Well, that's what training is. I'm accountable. If I am the plug person on the engine company, I'm accountable for making the water connection with the humid valve to the hydrant, to a piece of 4-inch hose that goes back up into a keystone valve. I have to understand that. That's my role. As a strategic level boss, as the fire chief coming in, they need to understand, well, Vance is the senior advisor. The IC loves it because I don't have to screw with the PIO or all the other fire chiefs. They don't want anything to do with it. That's what the senior advisor is for. The first thing, though, as a senior advisor is you got to make sure the IC's got their shit together and that the plan is right, that the safety of the people in the hazard zone is being taken care of. So you've got to have a competence and understand the work. You have to know it better than the firefighters do. Like, okay, this is how a Select-O-Matic 125 GPM nozzle works. Well, that was the equipment I used. So you're familiar with the capabilities of what the crews can do. And then sometimes, as an IC, I get things, hey, we're having trouble doing this. Well, you need to pull some ceiling and put some water in the attic right now. Well, no, I don't need another company. No, you need... pull ceiling. And then we're going to have a review when we're done about your timing. So, but it's all in effort of just delivering high quality customer service. That's where we prevent the harm, being nice about it. And then the senior advisor's final piece of responsibility is everybody survives. So when you're leaving this, we're all going to leave the scene together. So that's kind of the routine. And you're right, Vance. The way it gets, that the responsibility gets divided up is different between a big urban and a smaller suburban department, but it's the same exact, you're doing the same goddamn thing. You know what's not different? We talk, okay, you kind of customize Blue Card to your department and everything else. The one thing that's the same for all of us is the fire burns the same and the fire goes out the same. So you don't get extra points because I'm disadvantaged, I don't have as many companies. It's going to go out a little quicker for me. No, until you put the right GPMs, it's going to burn. So we can differentiate between this and that, but at the end of the day, if you all get together, we're all doing the same work. It's got the same time constraints. It's got the same deployment requirements, all of that. The key is you got to figure this shit out before the incident and then be competent when you get to the incident. That's the key to the thing. I'm done talking for the rest of the show.
No. Well, you know what? One of the I like this graphic.
Well, I started lecturing.
Yeah,
It turns into church. Goddammit, we just can't have it like this all the time.
Where we have this, you know, I always say.
Now you got graphics.
You know, the senior advisor ties the command team together. So let's talk about how that senior advisor hooks up to the support officer and IC2, and how they're also interfacing with logistics and the incident safety officer. How's that communication go? And how do we communicate that to the IC? Because a lot of times IC number 2 will, you know, when the senior advisor shows up, will still be in the mode, oh, I've got to take care of all of this. So there's almost like a little bit of a transfer when the senior advisor gets into the command post to say, okay, Jimmy, I've got this and this and this. You stay on the TAC channel. You worry about the incident. I've got everything else. So how does that feel? How's that look? And looking at our graphic here, how does that tie everybody together?
So a big piece of it is like Nick said, you have to train on this, discuss it, and exercise it before you have the incident. Otherwise, you got 5 people in the vehicle, and they're not all going to be on the same page. They're all going to be, you know, trying to do their own thing and not with the same really goal in mind, right? So one thing I just want to say is that's like an image from like a command van, right? So, but you could do the same thing with, you know, 2 4-door SUVs together, and maybe the senior advisor ends up having to stand outside between the 2, or, you know, whatever that looks like.
Half the time I was senior advisor, I was outside.
So
just like you said, 2 Suburbans, I was in the middle.
So that senior advisor is, you know, coordinating with all of it, but the biggest support piece is coming to IC number 2, and then they're hearing from the incident safety officer that's in there. If they are on a separate channel with that support officer that's in a division, they're hearing what's going on with that, which really becomes back to like a needs piece potentially. So the senior advisor's hearing, oh, there's a need maybe from the field from a division, and then it can be connected back to logistics to get that resource coming in. And I think like Nick said that, you know, command didn't even know or doesn't know that there's 4 alarms where the company's, you know, here because somebody else is doing that work, right? So I think it's like any other exercise we do. Every person there just has to do their job. And we've been talking a lot recently about this whole task saturation thing. And no one person, no 2 people are gonna manage it when you have 4 alarms worth of resource there. And we don't want them doing that because we want IC2 focused on the shit that's going on inside of the IDLH. Not the PIO shit, not the water supply, not the EPA, not the bus service needs to know when the road opens back up. None of that.
Whatever
or
the
police.
the current tactical priority is
Right.
what they're rocking and rolling around. See, and the other thing that does is when you look at incident organization and incident communications, they're the same thing. They're married together. You organize so you can communicate and keep everybody in the same direction. So we talk about single channel hazard zone operations. Well, if I've got, let's say, a 4th alarm, and I've got a building burning, I got some hazmat stuff going on over here, I got an evacuation over here. Well, that's probably 2 to 3 radio channels right there. And then I got a logistics channel where I've got my staging and my firefighter rehab on. So when you go back to that model of the 5-person command van, IC and the sport officer on the TAC channel, the ISO, or basically the safety section is what they are, is on the safety channel. And then you've got logistics, and they're on a different channel too. So logistics is non-hazard zone, and that's where we're going to have staging and firefighter rehab. So all the firefighters, all the task level personnel, before they get into the incident action plan, they're going to be on the logistics channel. This is for a greater alarm. We started this incident off on one single channel, and we slowly escalated when we had the personnel into 3 different channels because you're doing 3 major operations at the same time that the senior advisor is coordinating inside the command post. If it's a fast-moving thing, it's better to have them in the same command post. If you got one little deal over here and a different little deal over here, you can do it open air, and it works pretty well. Defensive fires, big, like organic shit burning, poles, dumps, things like that. Inside the command post, Josh said it, each person's responsible for their own thing. The safety section's responsible for the safety channel. Logistics section's responsible for logistics channel. IC support officer, tactical channel. Senior advisor becomes the glue that keeps them connected. An example, they're doing roll calls. Let's say you've got some offensive positions in this thing. You got 2 divisions, the safety officers and Alpha and Delta are given roll calls to the safety section inside the command van, exactly where their personnel are within the division at that point. I've got engine 5, engine 7 inside with ladder 4, and I've got engine 6, engine 8, and ladder 9 on deck. So safety section writes it down. Senior advisor comes over, takes that note, goes over to the support officer who's maintaining the tactical worksheet and says, here is your roll call right now for Alpha. Oh, thank you. They can bring their worksheet up to date. Now, it's not as critical that they know that because I have a division boss in Alpha who is responsible for those. What we're doing is we're just keeping track now. We're doing inventory inside the command van, low impact inventory, because the real juice is going on in the division between the division boss and those companies that are assigned to them. That is the way we maintain our strategic span of control, is division bosses. in blue card, people say, well, we use our company officers, working company officers assigned to the units as division bosses because they're good. And yeah, they're great. The problem is when the shit hits the fan in Alpha, is they ain't talking to you anymore. They're done. They're task level operators, and they're going to go get handsy-tasky, and you lose them. So what happens is the flywheel blows up, and you own them, but there ain't no one to control them because that good company officer is doing company officer work, which is what they showed up to the scene to do in the first place. We have just gotten away with it for the last 100 years because we've been putting the fire out by the time that happens. If it's opposite and the fire's jacking up, that's where you get your lunch. And it doesn't happen that often. Well, it doesn't happen that often. Well, you wear your seatbelt? Do you get in an accident every day in your car? I wear mine all the time, and I haven't hit my car hard enough to need it yet, but we wear it anyway. Same thing. No difference. If you're not doing it, you own it. And it's yours, man. And that is your bag of shit to deal with. Mm-hmm. The way you fix it is before the incident by drawing it out and saying, when we get to this point, this is the way we're going to manage it. And that's there is no doubt, when nobody's arguing about it, if you're well organized, you can make changes to an incident action plan. It's beautiful to watch. I would call that a professional operation. Whereas if you're not doing that, it's more of an amateur hobby for you. So, I mean, and that's kind of the difference. If you're serious about it and you do it for a living, eventually you figure out this is the best way for me to keep track of all this and to be in control of things where I feel comfortable that we're not going to toast the shift. I said I was going to shut up, but I'm not going to. You know that, right? It's yeah.
Well, we keep prompting you.
Yeah.
You know, the other thing here, what I think is very helpful for the IC is the senior advisor being the resource officer for them, getting them what they need. So, you know, I've been on these large incidents like a fire at a recycling plant and a front end loader's needed for some reason. Mm-hmm. The IC doesn't have to worry about requesting it. The senior advisor acknowledges, hey, I heard that, I'll get it for you. And that's all the support officer needs to know. They let the IC know, and then the senior advisor's magically making that stuff appear, i.e., whoa, this was a 4-alarm fire. I didn't know. Well, yeah, the senior advisor's keeping a par level of so many companies in staging. Once we get down to, you know, one truck left, then we're getting other resources there. And that helps out that IC once again on their focus, their sole focus being the incident and the hazard zone.
And I think the sooner you can plan on this and set it up, I mean, that's a critical piece, right? So we'll just take it back to deployment, that if you're calling a second alarm, then you have to have the people there to manage the second alarm. And once you get to this point and you have a command van set up with all those positions, you know, you can run it out a long way. And Nick's done, you know, a fabulous job on a few different times showing like how many people can you really manage once you have a command van in place and division bosses. Mm-hmm. And it's a shitload of companies.
Oh, yeah.
So,
and it's, I mean, we'll put the graphics up. There's more of them we can show you. But you put a couple division bosses between the command team and the task level, and that's what it is. That is truly, you are organizing the hazard zone now. So for years we argued, well, is it a sector, a division, or a group? No. It's a tactical level boss is what it is. And it's somebody that's got the juice that can say, no, Engine 5, you're going to stand there and you're not going to do anything. You're going to stand by till I tell you what you're going to do next. It's not going to be the captain of Engine 5. Captain of Engine 5 tells the captain of Ladder 11 that we're going to tie him up and we're going to take all the tack lines from him. Battalion chief does it, is I'm going to have to find a union rep before I take those kind of actions. So it's going to stop it. We use a rank structure to organize the administrative day-to-day function of the fire department when there's no hazard. And then when there's a hazard, we'll just use captains. The city did that to us for a while. No, we're not going to pay chiefs overtime because they're middle managers. They can't work here. Just hire a captain. The fire chief's like, we just hire captains to run the whole goddamn thing then. That's not the way it works, pal. There's different levels in this thing.
Well, and we've talked to captains that have a Mayday, and one of them's presenting at the conference, Captain Grandin from Lubbock. He had a Mayday, and probably the biggest heartache for him was once the Mayday was resolved, he was outside. He even forgot about the guy humping the hose in. So how are you going to be a division boss when a mayday happens to you and you're the one who's also supervising crews and also carrying out tasks? It's impossible.
Well, and everybody recognized that, and they said that's why you have to make a rescue group immediately as soon as there's a mayday, because that's their job. And you think, no, it's a division. It is that division's job to, first of all, keep maydays from occurring in the first place. So we prevent 100% of them. You don't have to react to them. But in the odd chance that one occurs, is you have a strong hand at that entry point into the hazard zone. And if you don't have that, Southwest Supermarkets, when the first chief showed up to, it would have been Alpha, Bravo. That's where they were all going in, Bravo. 10, 15 companies. By the time the first chief got over there, you know how many people were outside Bravo? 0. They were all inside. The captain who was running it at the time was inside fighting which way the hose went. So until they could put that organization in, the command team floundered. There was nothing they could do. It was just turn the radios off. It don't matter. Until we get division bosses here, we will not get control of this incident back. And once they got it, they got it back. It's too late. It was done. Too little, too late.
That's part of that challenge and verify, too, that the senior advisor is going to provide for IC number 2, that if they don't have that in place and they don't have the proper command structure, they're going to be the ones to initiate that and to advise the IC to put it in place and get it done. So that's one of the great things about that role.
I think sometimes and we talk about exercising the system, and I'm not about, throwing too many people at it to overmanage something, whatever, but it doesn't hurt to exercise it sometime. And sometimes I think you can get a senior advisor into place and help coach and develop ICs further also, right? So not in the middle of a bunch of shit happening, but having a discussion in the command post once things have settled, like, okay, like it's not over yet, but how did this really go? What else did we not think about, or why did you do that? And that's not the time to do it, isn't when a bunch of shit's happening, but I see it a bunch of times around suburbia that a chief will get into that back seat, and whether you want to say it's a senior advisor or not, they're getting into there to basically like, hey, what's going on here? Is everything okay? Do you need anything? Because it's 7 or 8 fire departments coming together, and the fire chief from that community showed up, and everything is going fine, but they just want to see like, okay, where's everything at? Do you need me to do anything? Yeah. And oftentimes the IC will say, "What are we missing something? Did we not like we know we're missing something, but." Are we missing something? What else do we need to do?
Yeah, they need like their boss to come in with another set of eyes and kind of evaluate, or am I okay with where I'm at now?
Right, and it's just a. I think it comes back to that task saturation, and do we get focused too much on one thing, and looking at if the strategic IC's at 30,000 feet, then the senior advisor's at 50,000 feet. Yeah. So I think that's a big piece of it in the suburban world of what. I think 90% of the U.S. Fire Service, how it ends up breaking down. So,
well, and the command post is a big deal too in it. See, when I did it like in the urban setting, as we showed up with the command van, so we would set the command van up first, and then we just learned as you just transferred command, you got on the radio, command van to command, the CV1 to command. Go ahead, CV set up. We're transferring command to the CV now. And we got into that because we would just tell them, hey, CV set up and ready to go. When would they end up in the command van? You said it, task saturation. Never. They're never going to leave their Suburban or whatever they drove there in. So we just, no. So if somebody said, command, Engine 15 to command, I would answer. I'd cover the IC. Command, go ahead. Well, they figured out he's not bullshitting. I need to get in the command van if I want to stay in command. So they're running. They come in, they sit down. I would print them off a resource list, and then we could do a snapshot, an overhead with the computer system, the way the trucks had AVL, of the footprint of the building, and then the saturation of the apparatus placement around it. So I give them both of those, say, you're good to go. We're going to get you more resources. You got half an alarm left. Have at it. And then off they go, and then we would call alarms for them behind them. They wouldn't know, they'd have no idea. So, but I said it earlier, the key is to do that before the event. It shouldn't be the fire chief, well, I listened to a podcast yesterday, now I'm going to show up and I'm going to be a senior advisor. No, man. You got to sit down and come up with a plan. And it doesn't, Josh said, it doesn't have to be signed in blood. It's like, hey, if I get there and you're taking care of the front end of this, I'm going to kind of help you flesh out the back end before you really need it. And then when you get to that point, it's done. So you don't have the media knocking on the window. So working for a big fire department had some huge benefits. It's like the PIO just showed up. They're at the end of the street, and the media wants to talk to them. They don't want to beat on our window because we're not going to open it. They know they're going to get the most usable stuff out of the PIO. The PIO, what they did is they wrote down a few facts that were just holes in their narrative about we got here so fast and we took great risks and we saved small children and puppies. And the rest of it, and Engine 5 and this and that, and the details of the occupancy and the rest of it. And so that system over time turned into about 5 to 8 minutes a night on every network news broadcast. And we got to the point where our video unit was actually like doing B-roll for them, sending them. And so it was a hug and a kiss. You talk about making your own advertising is what it was. I mean, it was, and you could see, man, the honey just kept stacking in the thing. I mean, we became more and more popular because of it. It was, and all you were doing was sharing with the public, this is what happened today in the city, and this is how the fire department responded to it. And the PIO telling the story. I mean, it was...
Well, and we accomplished that by having dual role people. So fire marshals, deputy fire marshals also serve as the PIO. As a senior advisor, or even a support officer, if the media is showing up to the command post, I'm shagging them out of there. We don't want people beating on the door. So I'll say, go stand over there. I'm going to have somebody over there to talk to you real soon. So you're going to get the official statement, and that's fine. And so even without that dedicated PIO, which is such a blessing to have. I mean, we were talking about like places like South Metro. South Metro's Colorado just had some huge incidents, and they probably have the best PIO channel in the country right now. If you haven't checked them out,
okay,
look up South Metro's YouTube page because it is fantastic. So you look at what they're doing, and you can scale that down to smaller fire departments. You can scale that down to the kind of organization we have. It's more function based than just having that title and somebody who's dedicated.
There is one person in your strategic command team that wants to talk to the media. But they just want to. I mean, that's their deal. They love talking to the media, telling the story. I mean, it's been a million years ago. The Rodeo Chetasky wildfire in Arizona, gigantic. At the time, it was one of the biggest fires in the history of fires. There was a guy named Jim Paxton who was the PIO for that. And it was kind of an accidental, and they wouldn't let him in the command post, so he started talking to the media. Well, man, he starts spinning this thing. He says, today the monster won. And, you're having downdrafts where whole, like, thermal columns are smashing and spreading fire for 20 miles in each direction. Well, he's narrating this thing like Shakespeare, And he's like an old grandpa, and he's drinking his coffee, and he's a rugged fire line guy. It's up like these CBS shows now with the convicts that are. And you think, finally.
that Cal Fire's upset about. They didn't get PIO input into the script approval on that one.
Oh, exactly. It was.
Well, you guys want to do a timeless tactical truth?
Hell yeah, we may as well, Vance. Garrison was quite impressed with you.
Timeless tactical truth from Alan Brunacini. This one's talking about the continuous improvement model. And he said, standard management cycle, procedures, training, execution, critiquing, revising, and back around. If we keep doing this, we are always fixing ourselves. And I think even to the point of exercising, having a policy for your senior advisor or other things on the fire ground, then you train on it, you execute it, and then you tweak it and make it better. Let's talk about some examples of that and how it improves the organization.
The review and revision piece, that's where Really, we would start that with, you would do it. Okay, what were the critical factors when you got here? So you're painting the picture. Okay, this is what we had, and then the best ones I was ever part of, it was like, what would be the best thing to the least number of people, the quickest way to put this out, and then that's the way we talk about it. And about 90% of the time, that's pretty much the action they took in the beginning. And you think, excellent job. Sometimes it wouldn't go that way, and the only way to make sense of it was to talk about it, figure out why it didn't, and then take any corrective action that needed to be taken. Sometimes it just couldn't be helped for whatever reason. And, you needed to understand that and say, well, the ball bounced funny that day and it just got screwed up a little bit. And, the next time we'll look for this and this. Other times, well, no, the first 3 companies got here, nobody laid a supply line. And when the trucks cavitated, the attic kind of took off on us. That's not good. So it kind of gave you that approach to fix little problems. But bigger problems, they didn't really come out that way very often. It was more, I think the more you train and fix things, because when I got hired, this is the system they were using. So they were already 5 years into doing this. So you weren't fixing the same problem. There was always something new. And we got to the point once where there was about a 6 or 7 year period where we figured out our SOPs conflicted enough that we were going to have to rewrite some major shit. And we had started doing that probably about 6 months before my old man retired. And then once he left, things switched and they went different directions to do a different thing. So all that just kind of, that got swept off and they did whatever they were going to do next. But you got to that point where you thought, okay, because like operations manuals and the SOPs and those are living documents. Is you're always you never put them on the shelf and say we're going to quit doing these. You're always going on one call after the next. So you got to the point where you said, no, this has got it's got landmines in here. To the point, like when you were doing promotional exams, you didn't ask certain kind of questions about rapid intervention and certain kind of overhaul techniques, and and there was no, and really we kind of fixed it with Blue Card after we all retired. Okay, we took this and we were able to do it in enough departments and enough places that you thought, okay, this is where this goes. A lot of it got fixed with removing rapid intervention as its own thing and just kind of using it as, okay, we're responsible. The response that shows up at the scene is responsible for their safety and welfare. There's not a piece of rick that flies out of the sky. We always thought was, no. It's got to be built in. And when you built it in like that, we figured out you could actually organize and manage it then, as it wasn't a separate add-on thing, as you were doing it. We really saw it as a true rapid intervention is the capability of the response. It's not a job to a task level unit. So I guess that's my example.
This thing is it's all about making sure we try to do it better, right? So we say we in a state of constantly trying to fix ourselves, and so many people are like, oh, well, we don't have to fix shit because everybody went home and we put the fire out, and it's like, well, that's a piss poor measurement of success, right? And that's where that accidental success thing pops up. So when we talk about that, the procedures. If you lay a supply line, you lay a supply line. If you didn't lay a supply line, then we're going to talk about why didn't you lay a supply line. And if the answer is, well, you didn't train me to do that, well, then that's a problem, right? So, you got to look at your procedures, make sure they're accurate, train everybody on it and say, okay, does everybody got that? And then when they have it, make sure that it's working. And if it's not working, then you need to adjust it. And then, it's just back to the top again. But we should be looking at every aspect of it. And, firemen seem to be pretty connected to sports. And I relate this thing every single time to when the quarterback comes off the field and they hand them the electronic device that shows exactly what just happened. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they're like, what the fuck was that? Mm-hmm. and they're like, well, I don't know what that was either.
That's when they throw the thing down on the ground.
They break it.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's that right there. Like we were doing this, and this is what it looked like or what it didn't look like. And there's a reason why, the most successful teams out there that are playing a game to win, which is very important, though we sometimes on the fire ground don't take it as serious on the fire ground as they do just trying to get the most points. There's a reason why some of those teams, right, wrong, and different, they'll run the score up because they're there to score as much as they can and keep you from scoring as much as they can, right? And you won by 70 points in a college football game, and they still are going to talk about it tomorrow. Like, we could have done this better, and we should have done that better, and we're not going to do that anymore. And they fix it, right? But on the fire ground, it's like, we put the fire out, nobody got hurt, and people high five, and like that was successful. And I think it comes back to the tailboard thing. I think you can fix a lot of those little things and have discussions there of engine one. Why didn't you catch a water supply? Well, this is going on that, and it's like, oh, okay, well that makes sense. That was a good reason, but let's make sure we communicate that then that you didn't lay a water supply, so we make sure we get one, right? So it's a lot of things with this can be, I think, fixed at the incident at the tailboard, and then. You take some notes on that, and if things need to be revised or fixed further in the bigger picture, then you do that.
Well, and you said it is like a football team. The football team that wins the game makes the best adjustments at halftime. So they know how to play football. They know how to throw the ball. They know how to run. They know how to do all that. They know all the plays. Well, the first half, they did this to stop us. So the teams that have the best results, their coaches say, no, we're going to do this half and see if they can stop us this way. So, and you said a lot of times people want to train. Well, it's practice. We're just practicing so we don't get it wrong, and this is what it looks like all the time. And the fire ain't the same all the time, so we need to have these different tactics that we could use to exercise. I mean, the most glaring one was that I've witnessed was the water application. Is now you can put outside water in the offensive strategy, and that just caused people to lose their shit. No, we can't do that. Well, yeah, you can. I mean, if you can knock 75% of the energy out of the fire before you open that door, why the hell wouldn't you? Now, if Mike Tyson was on the other side and you knew you opened that door and Mike Tyson was going to whoop your ass, what would you do? Well, I'd have a shotgun, I'd have 8 friends, I'd have 6 dogs. Well, that fire burned Mike Tyson up that fast. It'd make him gone. But so sometimes we don't have the regard for the fire that we should have. Is when, sometimes when the fire knocks on you, it's very painful.
Practicing the system and making sure that we have an appropriate way of taking care of it, and we're constantly tweaking it is really you can learn something from every single incident. And a lot of us aren't going to a fire every day we're on duty. Maybe we're doing a couple of fires a month. So let's learn as much as we can from those 2 fires a month and share that information with others within the organization too.
What you just said, and Nick said it, 90% of the time these things worked and there wasn't really even nothing maybe to talk about. Well, reinforcing that good behavior is a huge thing too. So everybody hears, no, this is the way we're going to do it. And this did work. And sometimes it's like, well, why did you do that? But it worked. And it's like, oh, that's what we're going to start doing. Right?
Oh, exactly.
So it's what is the best way?
When I was a young firefighter, I had watched water get put in from the outside before, out of like deck guns and things. And the effect it had, and you're like, stop don't do that. Is we have been waiting for this moment, and you've ruined it for us. And you think, well, no, you can't. Young firefighters don't get to run the tactics of the fire department for a reason. Because, it's you can't manage recreation. It's impossible. But man, you could FOFA, FOFA, FOFA.
More on that to come.
This was more fun than usual today. I don't know why.
I think it worked out well.
I don't know. The pancakes or something.
All right, fellas. I think we've done it. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us on Bee Shifter. Make sure you look at our conference. It's coming up starting September 30th, right outside Cincinnati, Ohio, in Sharonville. Here is the website below that you can go to, register, and check out what we have going on. And for information on us and what we talked about today, you can check out the show notes.
John, I just want to mention we're offering a May Day workshop at the conference. I think there's less than 20 seats left now. So if you were thinking about making it a 4-day event, coming to the conference, you need to get registered sooner than later. That piece is filling up very quickly. So
get on it. All right. Till next time, thanks so much for listening to Bee Shifter.
Yeah.